Sensitive scientific writing, what is actually possible, and why me? Why am I telling you and facilitating this workshop? You may have read the facilitator biographies. My name is Katharina Hartmann. I came to this cost action as a consumer representative. Or a service user, but as you can see, I put these into parentheses. Like, we don't really like the titles. That's how we are called in all the grant calls and everything. But when it comes to birth and birth trauma and perinatal mental health, our position is not that of one of a consumer, and it's not a service that we use. It's nothing that we can return. You know, when the service is bad, I go and complain to the manager. Because it sticks with people for a lifetime, and it cannot be exchanged. It happened, and then it's there, and then we have to deal with it. So we are the parents' perspective. And in this lovely cost action, we have a working group 7, which was not in the original plan, but then we popped up, and we're really grateful that this consumer parents' perspective has been taken into account. And what we have noticed over the past years, months that we worked within the action is that even within this extremely well-meaning group of researchers, that even here there's glitches of language or unintentional phrasings that are extremely, extremely hurtful to those that are actually, you know, at the center of attention. And we were thinking, yeah, if it happens in this group, it's probably going to be worse on the outside of this group. And we wondered, you know, how can we go about this? How can we help to make it easier? And I tormented my brain, and I taught this workshop in Iceland already. And then after that, it has already been replicated in Berlin and in London once by Susan Ayers, who used the workshop outline. And now we're here, and I just hope that I am catering to you what you need, which is extremely difficult. I'm a teacher by profession, not only by profession, but also by calling. Once in a while, I try to get away from it, but then I don't have students, and I try to eat my nails, and then I have to go back to school and teach languages. I have a PhD in a very different area. I have a PhD in Italian Renaissance homosexual love poetry. So I do come from languages, and I do come the idea of otherness, which has been extremely important in my PhD. And I think this is maybe helpful for teaching this, facilitating this workshop here now today. So how do we do this workshop? There will be more question and answers. It might be that you leave this room extremely unsatisfied. I will not give you answers. What I hope is that I can provide you tools that will help you to ask yourselves the right questions at the right moments in the future. Because the aim is actually to start a personal process within you. What do you want, and what are your priorities? And not to give you solutions. There will be many activities. So for the ones that are sitting in the center of the room, you will not stay there. It's going to be really active. I hope it's going to be really active. And the agenda is that we will start with one activity, which I call the 5 assumptions. And the aim of that is to kind of set the foundation and the atmosphere. It's an activity about self-reflection. That's that side of the room. You already see I prepared the room with 100% up there and then 0% down here. For the people participating online, it's something, if you want to, you can move around the room and have imaginary 0%, I don't agree at all, and imaginary 100% at the other side of the room, and position yourself for yourself there. And then we'll do the main activity, which I call try walking in their shoes, and it's about the change of perspective. So once you've had all your modeling and everything is done and you're about to write up your research, try the change of perspective. You will be working and I'm here to help. So if you're stuck, if you need more material, something that I can give you, give a shout out also to the people online. I'll try to come and look at the chat once in a while, and yeah, hope to be there. Hybrid teaching is challenging, but we can hopefully do it. So the 5 assumptions is about determining where do you stand, where do I stand, each and every one of you. It's a silent self-reflection activity, and I will present 5 assumptions to you, one after the other. Everyone has assumptions, we all have assumptions, and some are more true and some are not true, but we just take them for reality, and we hardly ever reflect on them and see where we stand. And this is what this activity is about. So your task is read the assumptions. It will be up here on the screen. And then think briefly about what the assumption, the statement means to you. And please take your time. Don't rush it. We do have the time today. And then please position yourself on the imaginary line between the 0%, I don't agree at all, this is not true for me, not today. It might be true tomorrow, but not today. 0% down here and the 100% up there. I put red lines on the floor so you have, it's easier to see maybe where the 0s and then where the 50 is. So are you 25% agreement? Are you 75% agreement? After the 5 assumptions, there will be time for a plenary exchange, feelings, doubts, thoughts on the activity, on the different assumptions. But please, let's do this activity in silence. You will probably be influenced by where the people around you stand. That's part of the process, inevitable. Maybe also take notice of how much this group feeling influences your position. Yeah, so where you are actually positioning yourself might not be your inner truth. Your inner truth is only true and important for yourself. Please, if it differs from where you actually position yourself physically in the room, take note of that, because that's what counts. Yeah. Ready for assumption number 1? The scientific community is the audience of my papers, of my publications. Down there, no, I don't write for the scientific community. Or up there, 100%, yes, I always do that. If you want to. Everybody where they want to be? Number 2. In academic writing, it is prudent to be cautious in one's statements, and one needs to distinguish between facts and claims. I don't agree with that. 0%. Yes, absolutely. 100% up there. You have to distinguish between facts and claims. Everybody where they want to be? Take note of your inner position, your inner truthfulness. Assumption number 3. Research is done for the greater good of society and not for the ivory tower. Yes, absolutely, up there at the top of the stairs. Nah, 0% down here. Some discussions going on at the back of the room here. Everyone where they want to be? Make mental note of your position for yourselves, if you're truthful to yourself. Assumption number 4. Everyone has the human right to freedom from harm and ill treatment. 100% yes, absolutely. Nah, everyone has the human right to freedom from harm and ill treatment. Everyone where they want to be? Freedom from harm and ill treatment. Everyone has the right to be free from harm and ill treatment. It's a human right. And the final number 5. Members of the cost action 18211, because of our mission, because of our title, because of what we aim to achieve with this cost action, have a special moral obligation towards not harming trauma victims. Yes, absolutely. At the top of the stairs. Nah. Down at the bottom. Picture taken. So where do you stand? Where do I stand today with my assumptions, with my truthfulness? And where do you stand tomorrow when you're actually writing the papers? Will it be the same? Because I don't know if you noticed, but of course, these assumptions, I picked them on purpose. And did you notice that some of them are in conflict with each other? Yeah. Did you notice conflicts? Do you remember? What was a conflict there? Yeah. So assumption number 1, an academic number 1, scientific community is the audience of my paper. Is that not the ivory tower in a way? And then if you put yourself in a different position here, society is for the greater good of society and not for the ivory tower. Yes, please.
I think it's like, I don't know what you mean, that they're kind of like against each other. But for me, it's for many questions, it was like, what are the facts and what was my opinion on the things, that they were kind of mixed and they can be opposite. Like, I think the facts right now are different from what I think it should be like. So it's like that, it does tend to be opposite.
Yeah. But actually, this one could also be seen to be in conflict with this one. What are human rights? Are they facts Are they claims? There's actually many positions all over the world. They say, nah, it's human rights, you know, the UN human rights bill, that's just words, doesn't concern us. And how does that concern maternity care? So my background is heavily grounded in human rights. That's where I come from. I was political activism leader of a NGO that's called Human Rights in Childbirth. And that's my background. So of course, my view on this is very different from other people, probably, I would suppose. Yeah, and I think it's also about maybe about positions in your career. Being a young career researcher, you have to publish. You must publish or your career will not advance. So probably the choices that, you know, a young career researcher makes is different from somebody who has a 30-year career and says, ah, well, if they don't publish this, that's all right, I can live with that. I'll just put it on my blog. I don't need the, you know, the Hirsch index or something. But I think that these questions, yeah, should guide writing processes to think about this. Please come back down. Anything else that you would like to add on this activity? Also on the chat. So anything else that you need to get out here before we move on?
I might say that post-COVID, I think, you know, you come in full of energy and enthusiasm at the start of the past action, and it's great to see all of the work. But then you have the cold face in terms of increasing interventions and, you know, seeing partners excluded from hospitals over COVID and away from, you know, you see fathers excluded from a birthing room, and, you know, some of those things have been slow to change now that things have been done. So, you know, we wonder about the culture and the healthcare system really.
Yeah.
And how drive change. Because personally in Ireland, we just have such increasing medicalisation of childbirth that it is sad actually to see. And I think we're probably post-COVID going to see more birth trauma than we've seen before.
Yeah. So there has been an intervention from the audience saying that, especially now with COVID and the restrictions, I'm just repeating what you said, Sylvia, to the microphone. We have probably seen more trauma, and like many countries all over Europe have what? Not kept the balance between what? Their kind of security, as I want to call it, and, you know, the human rights and the choices and the participation of fathers and, yeah, being there with people instead of treating people to childbirth. Yes, absolutely. So it's probably a good time to do things differently. Ready for the next bit? Try walking in their shoes. This is going to take quite a while. Try walking in their shoes is a 3-step activity. So the first step is think for yourselves individually. And then I would like to ask you to get into groups of 3 or maximum 4 people, but it should be 3, not just a pair. A pair is not big enough. 3 is good, 3 to 4 people, and share your thoughts. And the results of your discussions, you will write on slips of paper, different colored paper. I will provide you with pens and paper, and I will put them up on the walls. I hope that I'm allowed to put things up on the walls here. And step 3 then is the gallery walk. So get up and read what you and other people have shared on the papers. I think we should probably have like 20 minutes of group work as well. I'll move around and see how it goes. Sometimes there's more and sometimes there's less, and we can be a little bit flexible, but take your time and think it through and discuss things in depth. And then in the end, we'll have another open plenary session for thoughts and doubts and issues. So I will present you with the 3 steps, and then I will go so that you know what's coming up to you, what the activities are. And so then I'll go back step by step, but just so you know what's coming up to you. So step 1, I will provide your groups with personas. It's cases, if you want, written on paper. There's 2 different personas. Persona A with a little short description, a case description, and persona B, 2 different stories. Maybe the one speaks more to you than the other. You can do both at the group as a group. You can decide just to focus on one. It's up to your group, okay? Step 1 is read the persona and impersonate it. And these are real people. These are not things that I made up, but it's people that I've met and I've spoken to. And this is their stories that they said, yes, please use me. You can share this with the world. And these are real people. So read the persona and put yourself in their position and imagine you are them. And when you think, yeah, I'm there, I'm that person now, flip the page and read the backside. There's the conclusion on the backside. What is yours, so the persona's reaction to the conclusion on the backside of the paper? That's step number 1. Step number 2 then is within the group to discuss your feelings, your reactions. Where do you differ? What do you share? Why do you share things? Why are things different? What are you thinking there? And then your task is to write on the cards. How does the conclusion make your persona feel? So write adjectives on the yellow paper that I will provide you with. Happy, sad, angry, whatever. Adjectives. Does everyone know what adjectives are? Yeah. If there is a problem with the conclusion that you read on the back side of the paper, is there a conflict? There might not be one. You might not perceive a conflict, a problem with the conclusion on the backside. But if there is one, what is the problem? What's the conflict? And if you perceive a conflict, how could it be solved? What's the alternative? And there will be green paper for the alternative conclusions. And I will walk around and collect the paper and stick them on the walls. So what you will write down will be shared with other people. And then in step 3, when you are done and when everyone is done, you can get up and walk around and see what other people have come up with, but please don't do this before you're done within your group work, because it, of course, influences the process. So far, so good. So step 1, please form groups of 3 people, ideally.
How's this working with the online people?
Well, Carlos said there was a trick. My idea was to put you into online, into breakout rooms, but Carlos said there was a different way to work around it.
Well, there's more than 4 of us online, so
Yeah, so if we mute here and we mute you for the room, then you can talk with each other.
But I need smaller groups.
Work really well that we kind of have one thing per group.
One king per group. It's up to you. I can.
But
There are 9.
I only add 4 of us.
How
Okay,
many people do we have online?
I think it's
9, 8.
yeah. This is Hannah, so this is
Oh,
here, so this is me from it, so 7. So there are 7 people, yeah, that may be too much. So you
Yeah.
want to break out then.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
easier to break out. And the material, your online people is it already on the OFS?
I
the
put it on the
personas?
OSF, but I
Yeah.
need to check whether it opens because
Yeah.
first things first.
So for the people online, I will read some of the adjectives on the yellow pages. They're quite similar actually. So there's angry, guilty, annoyed, ashamed, funny, tiggerish, disappointed, ironic, guilty anger, failure, irritation, sad, lonely, failure, challenged, self-blame, relief, black and white feeling, frustration. For scenario A, that was the woman with the breastfeeding situation. And for situation B, the woman with the extremely painful birth, sad, angry, hopeless, indifferent, rebellious, alone, relieved and thankful, disrespected, betrayed, physically and emotionally hurt, disempowered, responsible, patronized, suicidal, scared, discouraged, diminished, frustrated, alone, unhappy, humiliated, traumatized, anxious, not supported, and fear. Those were the adjectives on how people in the room felt that the women in the scenarios felt. For the next step, is there a problem with the conclusion? For scenario A, medical support and even important as personal support, or maybe more important. I don't know. I'm unsure. Cannot read. Working conditions for maternity care providers for B. Education for family, that breastfeeding is not an automatic process, social cultural factors of breastfeeding and transcultural care around breastfeeding, care and treat respectfully, psychosocial support, training and education for providers. They need to know how inform women on the realistic benefits and challenges of breastfeeding. The conclusion should reflect the societal and institutional influences on feeding choices, and the research questions need to be different and should have been informed by women's experiences. This is just some of the things on the greens. So many actually felt that there was a conflict. That's not automatic. It does happen that people say, nah, no problem there. For the red, no, it's the other way around. This is, I read because I took the pictures the wrong way around. I'm sorry. I walked that way. I read the conclusions, the alternatives, the positive change before. So the problems on the red, step 2, second read what was the problem, what was the conflict, but it still stays. People saw a conflict. I already know about the benefits, but it didn't work. My individual situation is not considered. Confounding factors are missing. Social norm of breastfeeding. I have no choice. The conclusion increases the sense of failure. The message of the conclusion places a responsibility on the woman, overlooking other factors. Should, as a word, might imply a suggestion instead of an obligation. And the conclusion suggests that the only reason women choose not to breastfeed is because they are lacking information. That's for A, and for B. The woman feeling extreme pain. I was dehumanized, not heard, disrespected, and betrayed. The midwife did not care for me. It's easy to say should, it has to be a must. I had opposite experience, or I do not believe in this conclusion. B doesn't define respect or maternity care. And the word women leaves the question, what about others? Also a problem seen in B. It's a right, not a conclusion. It's an obvious statement. It's stupid. It's missing implications for practice. And just as the cases are real cases, so are the conclusions. I did not make them up. I just copy pasted them onto my slides. So I'll jump back to the green solutions. So how could it be made better? For A, education for family on that breastfeeding is not an automatic process. Social cultures, transcultural care. Women should be informed of the benefits and challenges of breastfeeding and bottle feeding to allow them to make informed choices. And for A, maternity care providers must treat women respectfully. Trauma-informed care and respectful maternity care is needed for healthcare providers and society. Must be turned into a must. Educate maternity providers on trauma-informed care and the impact of language. Also for B, the focus on consumer, cannot read this. Communication, yes, thank you. And training, maybe. Give implications for practice, define respect and maternity care. What are we actually talking about? Give examples of respectful care and recognize how language can be unique to women. I don't know, you walked around the room, like you read these and what the other groups found and felt and collected. And then we have the problems, and many people saw problems there. And then you come to the conclusion. Are they good conclusions? Are they satisfying? Oh, I don't know, people grimace in the audience. No, like not even when we read the green ones, it's satisfying. Why not?
They bring up the same stuff and really not has away from then about the should and change out.
Woohoo! We have a microphone.
At home.
Yeah, I just felt when I was reading it, I was like, well, no, we're making the same kind of, is it fallacies nearly? Like it was the same wrong conclusions in a sense, and we're just wording it differently, but still having the same problem maybe in it sometimes. Or like, I know that we were in our red, we said something about should, and that is actually like, that's the same thing. It's like, it's not the, like, it doesn't change it, and it's still like, I don't think we've come up with the solution in a sense. Like, I don't know.
Just move the microphone.
I think we already have the practices, recommendations and solutions, but it's not working. Because we know that should be changed, but it's not working. Because we still have the like cases.
Anybody else?
My point really
I
is
don't think
that-
it's.
My point really is that this is why today is very important, is that we can't have enough of the service user perspective, because I think it is so central to healthcare delivery. It is the best form of education for all of us, whether we're practitioners or researchers, is to hear and to listen to the lived experience of women and families. And so it has to be, you know, we have, whether we're educators or researchers, we have to be really mindful that it isn't just a tick box exercise of participatory, you know, a PPI element in a form to get funding, that it actually has to be the way we do our work in terms of health service delivery. And I think that's my point really. I feel strongly about that. And it's great to have you here, that and hopefully from little seeds acorns grow, and that we, you know, pass that on. And we've students here, so you're the lifeblood of the professions, is that, you know, when you have students that you know, that it's passed on and it spreads.
Just in regards to the second conclusion, was it about, you know, maternity care providers should respect women? I just think is very simplistic, because if it was really that easy just to tell everyone you should be behaving this way, because I'd say most providers do think that they provide respectful care, and so just saying, oh, they should do this, it's just like a very throwaway surface level comment, and it doesn't really address anything. Do you know what I mean? I just, yeah, sometimes when you're reading papers, like, there's great data, there's amazing comments from women, you know, especially with qualitative research, and then the conclusions are just like, yeah, they're just so simplistic and surface level. So it's a good way of kind of zoning in on that, like actually comparing the two together.
Somebody up there for the conclusion suggested to change the should from the must. What happens if you send a paper with a must in it to a publisher?
Declined.
Declined, yeah.
It was
You know,
yours.
the assumption about the claims and the facts, but it's not taught, and it's a no-go. Like, should is the modal verb to use in scientific writing, and that's what's taught. And it will take years to change that culture, I think. And if you need to get a paper to publish, what do? Do you insist on the must? Of course you don't. I would not. Unless I'm, you know, a dinosaur, you know, very close to retirement and say, yes, I'll get into this battle now. This is my mission. Then maybe I would. And what is also what happens very often for the green part is that people read that and they're still not satisfied and say, well, it's time pressure also, but it's extremely difficult to write trauma sensitive conclusions. It's extremely difficult to get into the nutshell and to have it so condensed. I mean, we only had like 5 minutes here, so it's not realistic, but and when we developed this workshop in working group 7, there were ideas of doing actual writing exercises, and, you know, how do we deal with different modal verbs and all these fancy language things that, you know, people could do. And then we said, no, but this is not really helpful, because it takes so much time, and maybe it's better to do an awareness workshop. And I hope that this has worked today with you, that the awareness is there, and that when in doubt, go ask the people. Find somebody in your community and hand the whole paper, hand it over and say, how do you feel about this? What do I need to change anything so you feel seen? Do you even want that? Is that your priority in that moment, to have these people have the feeling that they are seen? Or is the priority to get the third paper for your PhD out there finally, because otherwise.
What happens when, say you were to contact someone in the community that has that lived experience and they told you what they think in the paper stands out to them as maybe disrespectful? If you were then to give that to another person who has lived experience, would that not be different for each person? And then you're in a bit of a cycle, you're never going to produce a paper that's perfect for everyone, because I know things are quite unique. My background was grief and bereavement, and I know for a lot of families it could be the most unique thing that stands out to them that is quite hurtful that other people maybe wouldn't be able to pick up on. So it's almost making sure the language around it is quite kind, as well as not necessarily avoiding what might upset them, but being quite open to the fact it might be upsetting for people and being kind about it.
Yes and no. Yes, it will never be fitting for everyone, but like I've been in this field for 15 years now, and there is a common ground. Yes, there's of course personal, individual words that are acceptable, not acceptable, lived experiences that are different, and like, yes, of course, but there's still a common ground. And I believe that we can still do better than we are doing now. Like,
I was thinking, does that change for, say you've got a PPI group that you've been working with who are quite experienced in working with you, does their perspective change on almost if they know the papers that you maybe have to produce to get published and things like that? Does that change their perspective on it if they've been working with you in research for a bit longer? Do you constantly turnover of people with more recent experiences? And
I'm eluding myself that yes, because otherwise I could not continue to do this work if I did not have these kind of successes, I believe. But you could do a study on that if it did actually change. Put it to the test. Yeah. I work. So we're already 2 minutes over time, so just a super short wrap up. So the papers are read by lay people, and the language does affect them. And not all triggers, but very proper use of the word here, can be avoided because it's so individual, and because some things need to be in the paper because otherwise you don't get them published and everything. But I think that the leading questions, who are you actually writing for? And how much are you willing to, where are you willing to compromise? Because there will be compromises. You will have to make compromises, definitely. But where? What's your choice? What's your position? Where do you stand today? I think that must be the leading questions, more than discussing whether the should go and the must should be there or not. Yeah.
Can I just ask, because you said you've been working with this for 15 years or so, and just when you were making the comments about the language is accepted by research journal editors and peer reviewers, do like consumer groups or service user groups write to journals with their concerns about language, and how do journals respond to that?
Well, I can tell you the story of a paper that we published within this cost action. It was written by Working Group 7, by the parents group, the consumer group. And it was extremely difficult to get it published because of that also. Like to mitigate between our activist language and what they could accept. And I don't think that it is a general issue yet. Like we do have the issue about the like women, like the transgender, and be more inclusive towards birthing people and not only talk about women. That discussion has been opened. The trauma sensitive wording, not yet.
Maybe interesting. Maybe interesting to look at what happens in the autism field, because I think there things are heating up quite strongly in terms of well, strongly vocal and emancipated group of people writing to journals or going on social media when when they feel that research is adding to stigma or is unnecessarily hurtful or is perpetuating a certain way of labeling their identity, and it also reveals dilemmas because parents of people with autism, they sometimes don't feel quite comfortable with the same kind of arguments that are being used. So they do want to have attention towards disabilities that autism can bring with itself, and are worried that some form of research may not be fundable or not be feasible anymore because of moral objections against, for example, finding causes of autism that may ultimately lead to elimination of autism out from the population. So it's also important to know that people with lived experiences can also have quite different perspectives and different interests in mind.
And it happens in this case when the word violence comes into the game. Violence, mistreatment, disrespectfulness, very similar to what Carlo just said. 3:37. Thank you. Let's make this world a better place.
Well, thank you, Katerina, for doing this. It mustn't be really easy always, but
No. It was very pleasurable today, though.